Hello, and welcome to Dining with Death. This episode is on my playlist, Dining with the Departed, where we talk about famous or infamous people who have passed. We talk about their lives and what they're famous or infamous for, and then I show you and taste either their last meal or their favorite food. Before we get started, please hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and you can always join my Patreon. We have a big goal there, and I will talk about that at the end of the video. I'm Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Amy Winehouse, the iconic British singer-songwriter, was one of a kind. There was no one like her before, and there has not been anyone like her since. If you heard her recordings before you knew who she was, and then you saw a photo of her, you would never put the voice with the person. She was born on September 14th, 1983 in North London. She was born as Amy Jade Winehouse, and she grew up in a musically inclined family where her talents were nurtured by both of her parents from an early age. Mitch and Janice Winehouse were both musicians, which meant that music was an integral part of Amy's upbringing. She was exposed to a wide range of musical genres, including jazz, soul, and rhythm and blues, which would later influence her unique sound. Her father often sang and played guitar at home, giving her lots of first-hand experience with live music. Growing up, Amy attended Susie Earnshaw Theatre School and later the Sylvia Young Theatre School. These institutions emphasized performing arts, allowing Amy to hone her singing and acting skills. It was during her time at these theater schools that her passion for music started to blossom. Amy was known to have a powerful voice, even as a little girl, and she would often perform at family gatherings and local events. Sadly, despite all of her musical talents, Amy faced some really serious challenges during her childhood. Her parents got divorced when she was 9 years old, and that had a profound impact on Amy. You know, divorce is such a funny thing in early childhood. It affects some kids so terribly. And I've often asked my own kids, you know, did our divorce, their dad and my divorce affect you guys? And they claim no. They claim they can't imagine us being together, that we were not a good couple. I mean, I got married when I was barely 18 years old. Was I even 18? No, I was 17 when I got married. And he's, 6 or 7 years older than I am. And my kids are like, we can't even imagine you together. So I'm sure they have issues. We all have issues, but they don't seem to be as affected as people like Amy. We hear a lot about these musicians and these artists that will go back to when things started to go bad. And it is sometimes the divorce. And that's just scary. You know, as a parent, you don't ever want to traumatize your kids, but we all end up doing it. At around age 12, Amy began to rebel and experiment with drugs and alcohol as a means of coping with her emotions. This early exposure to substance abuse would later become a struggle throughout her life and ultimately contribute to her tragic downfall. Amy's rebellious nature also led to disciplinary problems at school. She was expelled from Sylvia Young Theatre School at the age of 14 for not applying herself academically and for piercing her nose. So dumb. So dumb. Pick your battles, teachers. Pick your battles, parents. A pierced nose. These setbacks did not seem to affect Amy much, and she kept pursuing her dream to become a musician. At the age of 16, she enrolled in the Brit School in Croydon, where she studied performing arts alongside fellow talented artists like Adele and Leona Lewis. It was during her time at the Brit School that she began writing her own songs and developing her unique musical style. Her love for jazz and old school soul was further nurtured during this period as she delved deeper into the works of artists like Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald. Despite the challenges she faced, Amy's childhood experiences served as a foundation for her creativity and musical expression. She was exposed to a lot of different genres, she had lots of early performance experience, and at times she was able to do things most kids would not be able to do at that age. So much of whether people become famous musicians, famous actors, famous rock stars has to do with their upbringing, who they know, who their parents know, what city they're born in. I mean, you're not getting anywhere, in a little tiny town. You've got to be somewhere where you can be exposed to the scene. It's a lot about who you know and where you're born. It really is. Amy's rebellious spirit and her personal struggles seemed to add to the depth and authenticity of her music, and it made her relatable to audiences around the world. When Amy was 16 years old, a friend of hers passed along a demo tape she had made to some music executives. And that tape ended up in the hands of Simon Fuller, the man behind American Idol. He took the tape to Universal, the production studio, and everyone loved it. The company signed Amy immediately, and by 19, she was well on her way to worldwide fame. Her first single, Stronger Than Me, did very well in Europe and got Amy attention in the US as well, but it was her 2006 album, Back to Black, that made her an international star. I remember that time period very well. All of a sudden, Amy Winehouse was everywhere. It was like one day you didn't know who she was, and the next day she was absolutely everywhere. She was on the radio, she was on television, and she was in the tabloids every day. Not long into Amy's career, it was painfully apparent that she was struggling, but for a while she was able to carry on. Back to Black won 5 Grammy Awards, including Best Pop Vocal Album and Record of the Year for the smash hit Rehab. In addition to her Grammy success, Amy also received numerous other accolades for her artistry. She was awarded the Ivor Novello Award for Best Contemporary Song for Rehab in 2007, and she won the Brit Award for Best British Female Artist in both 2007 and 2008. She was a great lyricist. She seemed to really be able to dig deep into her emotions and pour those emotions out onto the page. People really connected with it. Beyond her musical accomplishments, Amy's impact extended to the fashion world as well. She became a style icon for her very unique signature beehive hairstyle, winged eyeliner, and retro-inspired fashion clothes. She had a very distinct look and a very confident demeanor. Amy's style was definitely unique. You know, back in the 60s, you would see the great big beehive hairstyles, but they were always really neatly done, you know, almost like they didn't look like real human hair. Amy's was kind of a rat's nest. It was kind of like, I mean, I don't think that thing on top of her head was her own hair. Nobody has that much hair. So it was probably a rat or a wig, you know, that she would plop on top, and then, you know, her own hair was down. The hair was very unusual. And then the eyeliner, you know, started out as just kind of the regular wing. And before long, it was like, you know, out to here and, you know, this thick. Very, very unique style. You know, you could tell that she did it herself. She didn't have a stylist. She didn't employ a wardrobe person. And a lot of her clothes were thrifted. I remember a lot of pictures of her walking in public barefoot, which just, as a person who doesn't love germs, I've got a Power Trip episode coming to you guys. We went to Power Trip. If you don't know what that was, it was a metal festival that was held a couple of weeks ago, and I'm putting an episode together for Patreon for it. I had a hard time in the bathrooms at that music festival. Walking around barefoot was just something I associate with Amy Winehouse. Britney Spears does it too, and I don't get it. But she had her own style, and she had her own confidence, and it was really beautiful. That time period, a lot of girls were kind of reverting back to the emo look, and I think she influenced that as well. Even though hers was more of a 60s style, I think it also connected with a lot of girls that were emo back then. Amy married Blake Fielder Civil in 2007, and the relationship was very, very fiery and very toxic. Both Amy and Blake were living in the darkest throes of addiction, and the relationship was not only vitriolic, but violent. People still try and blame Blake for the severity of Amy's addiction, but I don't think that's fair. Ultimately, we are all responsible for our own health. I've learned this the hard way. Amy's struggles with substance abuse were widely documented throughout her career. Her deeply personal lyrics often reflected her battles with addiction and the demons that she faced. Despite her immense talent, her addiction issues overshadowed her musical achievements at times, leading to a lot of public scrutiny and concern for her well-being. On July 23, 2011, we awoke to the very sad but not surprising news that Amy Winehouse was dead. We had watched her decline rapidly over the months leading up to her death, and it was just one of those things, very much like Layne Staley's death. People knew it was coming. There was simply nothing anyone could do. Amy Winehouse died of alcohol poisoning. She was also struggling with bulimia, which contributed to her overall poor health. Her bodyguard had been with her at home for about 3 days leading up to her death. Amy was drinking heavily during that time, but she was conscious and coherent. On the morning of the 11th, her bodyguard thought she looked a little strange after she passed out on the couch, but he checked on her. She was breathing and had a pulse, just sleeping very deeply. Around 3 p.m. that afternoon, he stuck his head in the door and saw her in the exact same position, and that was alarming. He went to check on her again, and that's when he realized she was dead. Toxicology reports revealed that Amy's blood alcohol level was more than 5 times the legal limit. The news of her death sent shockwaves through the industry, especially when people became aware that Amy had joined the 27 Club. If you don't know, the 27 Club is a group of famous musicians that have all died at the age of 27. The club includes, of course, Amy, Kurt Cobain, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, Brian Jones, Mia Zapata, Richie Edwards, who I'm actually covering in a couple of weeks, and many, many more. There is something a little disturbing about the 27 Club. In the wake of Amy's death, there was an outpouring of grief from fans and fellow musicians alike. Tributes poured in from around the world, praising Amy's unique voice, her songwriting ability, and the raw emotion she poured into her music. Many artists spoke openly about their own struggles with addiction, using her untimely death as a rallying cry for increased awareness and support for mental health issues. This is a really sad story about someone who was very, very talented, but very, very troubled. And I think it's upsetting to me, much like the death of Lane Staley, where so many people know that it's happening. And I'm not saying they didn't try to get her help at all. I just don't know what it would be like to sit and watch somebody die slowly right in front of your eyes. It's happening right now on TikTok. There's a very popular TikTok star. Her name is Eugenia Cooney, and she is a human skeleton. And when I say a human skeleton, I mean that literally. The skin is like barely stretched over her bones. I don't know, she might weigh 50 or 60 pounds. She gets dressed up in makeup and hair and dances, and we're watching her die right in front of our eyes. People have choices, and I don't know where that line is between jumping in and forcing someone to get help and giving up after you've done it 10, 15, 20, 30 times. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just one of the great tragedies of life. Something I always think, if there is something after this, which I'm not sure that there is, I hope there's some answers to that and some justice at some point. Amy battled eating disorders pretty severely, but she did like to eat at times. So stay with me now. We're going to get to know Amy a little bit better through some of her favorite foods as we go dining with death. Amy loved chicken noodle soup. She loved pizza. There would often be pizza boxes in her dressing room when she was done performing. And she loved banana liqueur, which is something I love as well. I love banana flavored things, and I always see stuff on other apps and platforms about like, ooh, gross, like the banana Laffy Taffies or the banana, and I'm like, what? Those are the best ones. So I guess liking banana flavored things is not that popular, but I like banana flavored things. And she had a really unusual cocktail that she drank that was her favorite. It was called the Rickstasy. It was 3 parts vodka, 1 part Southern Comfort, 1 part banana liqueur, and 1 part Bailey's. That just sounds absolutely horrendous to me, but I will have to try it because it's so interesting. But of all the things that Amy loved, she loved chicken noodle soup, especially like homemade chicken noodle soup. She loved what they call boiled sweets in the UK, like jellies and Mr. Freeze, Turkish Delight, things like that. But her very favorite food, and this is like a no-brainer, everyone that knows her knows this, is jerk chicken with rice and peas. So this is Jamaican food, Caribbean food, and I am so lucky in my town that is such a food desert to have an amazing Jamaican restaurant. They won't get anything out of this because most of my people are not from my area, but it's called Papa's Got Jerk, or Papa Got Jerk, I'm sorry. And it's over by the Zion Factory outlet stores. If you're ever in St. George, definitely hit them up. The food is amazing. The family that cooks it is amazing. Again, Papa Got Jerk, and you can look them up on the internet. But I'm so lucky to have these guys in my town. Let's give it a taste. As you can see, it is very, very seasoned. Caribbean food, Jamaican food is always heavily seasoned. That's just falling off the bone. So good. Spicy. Woo! Getting spicier. Oh, that's so good. The rice and peas. The peas are black-eyed peas, not green peas. They offer white rice at the restaurant, but I always get these. Oh. That rice is so good. It's so moist and flavorful. I know it just looks like brown rice. It does not taste like brown rice. I think it's white rice, but it's just seasoned. But it has amazing flavor. And I love, anytime I can get cabbage and carrots or cabbage and onions, I'm all over it. This is just comfort food. Rice and cabbage and chicken. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. This rice is so good. That chicken is just falling apart. Look at, the bone just fell out of it. I wanted to eat this right when I got it home. I had to stop myself to wait to film because it smelled so good. Thank you for joining me today on Dining with Death, Dining with the Departed, as we learned a little bit more about Amy Winehouse, gone too soon. Hit the like button if you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more, and you can also join my Patreon. We have a really big goal there. We're going to hit this hard after the first of the year. I would like for our community to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that has never been tested because there's no money to test it. There are thousands of sexual assault kits sitting in refrigeration that have never been tested. They cost between $500 and $750 a piece. We would like to pick a case, get that DNA tested, and two things will come out of that. Obviously, the first is that we hope we solve the case that DNA is connected to. The number two, we get that perpetrator's DNA in the system in case they have committed other crimes. It's a big goal, I know. It's a lofty goal. It's taking longer to get there than I wanted it to, but I am not giving up. With your help, we will get there. I sure appreciate you spending some time with me on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Your support means more to me than I will ever be able to tell you. Stay safe, my friends, and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dining with Death. Bye.